Previously on Bullshit Artists.
The Russo, that's what they called him. It was him and Lorna Pettigrew and a guy named Dennis a lot came in there together. They down there all the time, flopping around the floor like you do when you're high on coke and, the disco beat is grooving you.
We were creative, we were young, we were so high on cocaine. But Jethro Spivey was not a real person. Jethro Spivey was several people. You heard me right, honey. Jethro Spivey was a fiction, created by Dennis. Al just picked up the mantle and ran with it.
I'm so confused right now. So who the hell is Dennis? And why doesn't anyone know his last name? Sorry if I seem a little agitated, but with Al Russo, I had a legitimate person who used the name Jethro Spivey. Of course, Al Russo died in 1993, so we're not going to be able to ask him anything. And Jethro Spivey's writings continued until 2003, so he can't be our man. Is Dennis our man? Where is he? Nobody seems to know. Is he the person that walked into Stan Roth's offices in 1979 with a play? Or was it Al Russo? Or was it someone else? I don't know. Sometimes I think this is all just a bunch of bullshit. But I'm going to get to the bottom of it. And I'm going to find Dennis. That's where we're starting. I'm Scott Gordon. And this is Bullshit Artists.
Yeah.
Hi, Anthony. It's Scott Gordon. We spoke on the phone a few days ago.
Yeah, the bullshit guy.
Right.
I remember.
Right. I was calling back to see if you could tell me anything else about Al Russo, or in particular his friend Dennis, who used to come into the Rotunda Club.
Look, I already told you everything I know about those guys. Did you try Lorna?
Yeah, we talked
Yeah.
with Lorna.
Mason Jerkin was another one that was down there with him a lot, the playwright.
Yeah, Mason's number is unlisted. We can't seem to get a hold of him.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Now, we had a client that was in there all the time that might have hung out with him, named of Todd Rankin.
Todd.
Todd, yeah. He was a piece of shit.
And do you remember where Todd lived?
Well, Todd lived in the city, and he was all about the clubs, and he would come out there all the time. Called himself Hot Toddy.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, what a fucking...
Do you have any idea where Todd's living these days?
No, I don't, but he's in the phone book. Look him up. You're an investigative reporter, or whatever.
Just do a podcast.
Podcast, whatever. I don't know what that is.
I did look up Todd Rankin. Turns out he's alive and well, living in upstate New York with his wife Margaret in the town of Seneca Falls. Their 4 kids are now grown and out of the house, and it would seem that Todd and Margaret are suffering from a wee bit of empty nester syndrome. Now in his late 60s, Todd has sort of reverted to his old drinking ways, which Margaret is kind of ambivalent about. After all, it does get him out of the house. So Todd and I went down the street to Dewey's Third Ward Tavern and proceeded to tie one on.
Shelly, can we get another beverage down here when you get a chance? We are empty. Thank you. Shelly's good. I mean, it being a bartender, I don't know about the other things. But his name was Dennis K. Last initial. Or maybe Dennis P. I don't remember. Why don't you remember? Well, it was a long time ago. I mean, who asked the guy's last name when you're just hanging out at the bar with him? I mean, say maybe some other people do, but I didn't. We were just casual acquaintances. I didn't know his last name.
Do you remember anything else about him, though? I mean, you guys hung out.
Well, yeah, we hung out, but Jesus, I didn't think to, take a FBI dossier on the man at the time. I didn't know that this would happen 40 years later. And besides, I was drunk back then. I'm drunk now, so I can't remember. I'm sorry. I mean, I would if I could, but I don't. He used to come down there with a fella named Al
That's Al Russo.
all the time. And he was friends with Lorna. They were tight. I mean, they were always together. And another guy used to come in there with them.
Andy Warhol.
A guy named after the jar.
Oh, Mason.
Mason, yeah, Mason. Mason Jurgen. Mason Jurgen. Yeah, those three would come down there all the time to not Club 54. I keep wanting to call it Club 54. It was like Club 54. They had the disco lights under the floor. You expected John Travolta to come out and start doing those moves. Yeah, I mean, you laugh now, but this was late 70s. Man, that shit was in. And besides, unlike Club 54, they would let me in this place. The Rotunda Club was awesome. I mean, but it was a stereotype. You expected to see a Cuban guy with a medallion on selling coke in the corner. And he did. And his name was Jose. And we loved him. Coke was a thing, a big thing, man. I mean, people don't understand. It was like air. It was like water at the bars now. We didn't hydrate. We just went to the powder room, We called it the lasso of truth.
Oh, that's what Lorna said.
Yeah, because when you were in its grips, you were just spitting truth, And it was great. And Lorna was a fucking powderhead, man. She was always, oh man, she was hot too, man. She did her thing on the dance floor. And,
Whoa. What was her thing?
well, she did a lot of things. She was really, really cool gal. Man, we all had a good time. Don't let the history books fool you. It was a wonderful time to be alive.
What about Dennis, though? Did he go to any other places? Did you see him out anywhere else that you can remember?
He would come down to the pickle jar a lot. He'd hung out there too. And he would go down to Jim's place on the corner. What was it called? The Tourniquet Lounge. He would hang out there at Jim's Tourniquet Lounge. And, he just was a mysterious guy. No one knew much about him. I knew he wrote plays or, was submitting them. I don't know. He talked about that a lot. He talked about he had a roommate named Barry. I do remember that because we used to be like Barry White or Barry Manilow. Because they were both popular. Or Barry Gibb. Yeah.
You wouldn't happen to know where he lived during this time.
I don't know. Yeah, we went back to his place one time. He lived in Hell's Kitchen. I do remember that. And it was I remember it being like a lime, the apartments were like lime green. They were just green. And we commented on how bad they looked. Even back then, it was pastel green. It was horrible. But I couldn't tell you where we were. We were drunk, taking cabs everywhere. Who knows? But it was Hell's Kitchen. That's where he lived. And his roommate wasn't there, but his roommate's name was Barry. I remember that. And I also remember nothing else about that.
Yeah, nobody seems to remember much about Dennis.
Yeah, shit, it is a mystery. It is a mystery. Would you like another drink?
Oh, no, I think I'm good.
I think you need another drink.
I don't think I want another drink.
Shelley, could you set us up another round of shots, please? Thank you.
Oh.
Bottoms up. Woo! delicious. I think I'm gonna be sick.
So, as you might imagine, 40 years on, most of the bars that Todd talked about are no longer with us. The Rotunda Club closed its doors in the mid 80s, and the Pickle Jar literally burned to the ground in 2001, the victim of a disgruntled employee turned arsonist. But the Tourniquet Lounge is still alive and well in eastern Union City, New Jersey, right down by the Hudson River. It sits where it's sat for the last 50 years. Now, the owner, Jim Leventis, passed away about a decade ago, but his son, Steve, still runs the place. So, after I'd had a day to recover from the hangover, drinking shots with Todd Rankin, I sat down over beers with Steve Leventis at the Tourniquet Lounge in Union City, New Jersey, and talked about its rich history.
Todd Rankin. Absolutely, I remember Todd Rankin. They called him Hot Toddy. He called himself that. He sat right there in that seat at the end of the bar, and he would drink gin and tonic was his thing.
Were you bartending back then?
Yeah, my dad ran the place, but, I was 18. He'd let me come in and serve the regulars. He'd have to run chores or something or wouldn't have a shift, and I'd get to take it. I mean, that's a dream come true for an 18-year-old. Well, not every 18-year-old, but this guy right here. So I have pretty good memory. So I remember all the regulars. I remember their drinks. And Todd would sit right there. And he was a bar fly. He'd come in every day at the same time, hang out, and then he'd probably run down to the Rotunda Club or someplace at night. And this was just his life.
And Todd told us that around the same time there was a guy named Dennis K. or Dennis P. He was a writer that used to come in here as well. Do you happen to remember him at all?
Oh, I knew Dennis, sure.
Oh, yeah?
Dennis K.
Do you know what the K stood for?
No, K wasn't an initial. K was his name. Dennis K. K-A-Y-E. Like Danny K? Dennis K.
So he told you his name, right?
Well, I got to see that he had to sign his tab, so
Oh.
I got to see his name.
Right.
I don't forget.
What was he like?
He would come in, big spender. Oh, big spender.
Really?
No, not really. Are you kidding me? He would order whatever was cheapest on draft, and then if we didn't have any specials, he'd get Olympia beer. Olympia. That's the one on the can that had the horseshoe that said good luck. Jesus. We'd say, oh, good luck, Dennis. You're going to need it. Olympia. I mean, I could badmouth what we were serving, but, you try to push the product on people. Well, you don't want to push it on them because they may get drunk and kill someone.
No, of course not.
It's a fine line we walk. Yeah. Stevie, my glass is empty again. Easy, Jimmy. I'll get you in a minute. Jesus Christ. Jimmy needs another whiskey. But yeah, Dennis would come in across the river. He lived right over there in Hell's Kitchen. Look, over there you can see it. There it is. Hi, Hell's Kitchen. So he'd just come across the bridge to drink. He liked it over here. And he'd go down the street to, after he finished here, he'd go down to the, the disco place.
The Rotunda Club.
Yeah, the Rotunda Club. He'd go down there. But he'd come in here and write. He'd bring his little notebooks, his little pads, and he'd sit right over there at one of those tables along the wall. And he didn't want to be bothered by no one. He just would sit over there and do his thing. He was a writer.
Did you ever see what he was working on?
I don't know. I never really saw what he wrote. I think it was plays, poems, novels. I don't know. Whatever you write. Things people write. Yeah.
You wouldn't happen to know where he lived during this time.
I didn't know specifically where he lived, but I just knew it was right across the river there. In some apartments, I don't know what. He had a roommate, Barry, I think was his name. He talked about him. Don't know the last name. But lived in Hell's Kitchen. I think he hailed from Baton Rouge, if I'm not mistaken.
Wait, what? Are you sure you're not thinking of his friend Al Russo?
Yeah, but he was also from Baton Rouge.
Yeah, but isn't it possible you got these two guys confused? I mean, it has been 40 years, right?
I tend to not forget these things.
Well, that is interesting. Did Dennis have a girlfriend that you knew of?
He did not. I know this for a fact. He came in with Lorna Pettigrew a lot, but they did not. They were not romantically involved. I can say that for sure. In fact, it's not my place to say, but I believe Dennis was gay.
Oh, yeah?
I don't have the best gaydar. I don't travel in the gay circles. I don't know how they act, but it was my impression that he was homosexual. He never came in here with a man date or anything. Never said anything, but it just, you can kind of tell.
And how could you tell?
Just, things. I don't want to get into it, but it just seemed that way to me. I don't know. I can't say. I take that back. Erase that.
Okay. Outside of his sexuality, what kind of person was he? What was he like?
He was an abrasive personality. He wasn't the nicest guy. I mean, he wasn't hateful, but he definitely didn't like people. He was a loner. He wanted to just sit over there in the corner booth and be left alone. He didn't have very many friends. He was friends with Lorna. He was friends with Al Russo and a couple other people I saw him with, but he really didn't. He didn't socialize well, I guess is the way to put it. He just didn't like people. He would say, "Look at these fuckers down here. I wish they'd leave me alone." And they were just, regular bar guys just talking. They weren't bothering him, but he just felt like everyone was out to get him, I think. So, who knows?
Where the hell is my whiskey?
Jimmy, I told you I'm talking to somebody now. Oh, jeez.
God damn it, I'm gonna go to the TGI Fridays. Maybe they'll serve me.
He will not shut up until he gets his whiskey. So let me go take care of him. I'll be right back.
So, while Steve goes to pour the all-important whiskey, I pull out my phone and immediately begin searching for Dennis K. I'm giddy. I'm ecstatic. I finally have a last name for this guy. The search is back on. I feel like this interview has already been a total goldmine. I figure I'll ask a few more cursory follow-up questions and we'll fold up camp, shake hands, and go our separate ways. And then Steve comes back, sits down at the table, and casually drops this bombshell on me.
I did hear him talk about the Jethro Spivey name once or twice.
Wait, what? How? When?
In passing conversation with other people, I believe he was using it as a pen name to try to get published. He said you needed to have a flashy name,
Wow.
and he just liked the name. He liked the sound of it.
Do you know if this is something he came up with, that he created, or did he borrow this from somebody else?
I think he came up with it. Yeah, I don't think he got it. I don't think he stole it from anybody. Was Jethro Spivey a person? I don't think I'd ever heard the name. It was just his alter ego, if you will.
Fun fact, there are over 2,000 individuals with the name Dennis K. currently living in the United States of America. I spent some money, I took some time, I compiled a list of all of them, and began one by one calling and crossing them off my list. So I spent a lot of long nights filled with wrong number, he doesn't live here anymore, he's deceased, what the hell are you selling, etc., etc. You get the picture. And after a few nights of this, you tend to get a little punchy. You tend to get a little disappointed, and you wind up making mistakes. You dial numbers wrong. Apologies. You dial someone twice. Sorry, you already called. And these things happen. Usually, people that I call twice are pretty gracious about it. But one night, I accidentally dialed someone who had previously told me that there was no one there by that name. Dialed him a second time, and this exchange went down.
Jesus
Christ, man. Maybe you didn't hear me the first time. There's no one here by the name of Dennis, alright? As far as I'm concerned, all your children can burn in a lake of fire.
I am sorry, it was a wrong number.
Do you want a lawsuit for harassment? Because that's what this is leading to. I'm gonna fucking sue your ass if you call me one more goddamn time.
Once again, I apologize. It was just an honest wrong number. I certainly didn't mean...
Keep talking, keep talking, keep talking. Goodbye, sir.
On the next episode of Bullshit Artists.
I mean, he didn't do anything overtly evil like kill the dogs or anything, but he did fuck with their heads. Filled them with little doggy self-doubt.
Like an expired lover's corpse, lustful and rotting, as the scrotum moonlight shines down on this dirty planet of bleeding flesh, searching for another victim with eyes and cock of steel.